Good evening, all. I'm Dr. Shaini from Kanyakumari Medical College. 1 year, 2-month-old female child, Suganti, third born of non-consanguineous marriage, native of Odisha, was brought by her mother, whose reliability is good, with complaint of decreased activity and lethargy for the past 5 months, and complaint of poor weight gain. The child was apparently normal before 5 months, after which mother noted that she was lethargic with decreased activity compared to the children of the same age. There is also a history of abdominal distension for the past 5 months, predominantly involving the upper abdomen, gradually increasing to attain the present state, not associated with vomiting, constipation, facial puffiness, or leg swelling. On probing, the mother said a history of progressive pallor for 2 months, and there is also a history of poor weight gain. There is no history of pica, which was asked to rule out iron deficiency anemia, no history of skin hyperpigmentation, and no history of passing worms in stool, which rules out iron and vitamin B12 deficiencies, no history suggestive of lead exposure, no history of chronic loose of frothy or bloodstained stools, which rules out malabsorption. No history of yellowish discoloration of skin or mucous membrane. No history of passing high-colored stools. No history of joint or finger swelling, leg ulcers with irritable cry, which rules out sickle cell crisis. No history of any drug intake. No history of bone pain or tenderness. There was no crying while held. No history of recurrent infection. No history of bleeding manifestation, which rules out other lineage involvement, which might be there in hematological malignancies. No history of seizure or floppiness, which rules out storage disorder. No history of visual disturbance or hearing impairment, which rules out osteopetrosis. No history of palpitation. No history of fast breathing. No history of swelling of legs, no history of decreased urine output, no history of recurrent respiratory infection, which rules out congestive cardiac failure. Past history, no history of previous blood transfusion, no history of previous hospitalization, no previous history of jaundice, tuberculosis, or seizure, no history of surgery in the past. Antenatal history, mother was registered and immunized at Panangudi PHC. She was taking iron and folic acid, which was irregular. She said, according to her, she took only 20 to 30 tablets. Mother had anemia and was treated with 4 doses of injection iron sucrose. Even then, the anemia was not corrected. Hence, she was referred to our hospital for blood transfusion, but they didn't turn up. No history of fever with rash, no history of GDM, PAH or thyroid disorder, no history of drug intake or radiation exposure. Natal history, the child was delivered by full-term normal vaginal delivery in a Panangudi PHC. Birth weight was 2.6 kg and the child cried immediately after birth. Neonatal history, breastfeeding was initiated within the first hour of life. No history of NICU admission, no history of neonatal jaundice. The cord fell off at 5th day of life. Developmental history, the child had neck holding at 3 months of age, rolled over at 5 months, sat with support at 6 months of age, started sitting without support at 13 months, and now she can stand with support at 14 months, which suggests a gross motor delay with a developmental quotient of 64%. Fine motor, language, and social skills are appropriate for age. Diet history, breastfeeding started within the first hour of life, exclusively breastfed till admission, that is 1 year, 2 months. Complementary feeding started only after admission. No vitamin or iron supplementation were given. Assuming that the child got at least a 600 ml of breast milk, the energy deficit must be 548 kilocalories and the protein gap with a protein gap of 8.4 grams. Immunization history, immunized up to 6 weeks of age according to National Immunization Schedule. During hospitalization, child immunized with penta-2, OPV2, fractional IPV2, and MR1. Family history, child was born to non-consanguineous parents. There was history of anemia in mother during antenatal and postnatal period requiring blood transfusion. No history of abdominal surgery, jaundice, gallstones, leg ulcers, or frequent blood transfusion in any family members. No history of stillbirth or unexplained infant death in family. Socioeconomic history, the mother had no schooling. She was a housewife. Father studied up to 5th standard. He was a brick and worker living in a thatched house with 2 rooms and 2 windows. Practice open air defecation using common borewell as a source of water supply. According to modified Kuppusamy scale, they belong to socioeconomic class 4. Contact history, no history of contact with a case of TB or COVID-19. Allergy history, no history of allergy to any drugs. To summarize, 1 year, 2 months old female child, third born of non-consanguineous parents hailing from Odisha with positive history of decreased activity and lethargy for the past 5 months, progressive abdominal distension for the past 5 months, poor weight gain, progressive pallor, and a gross motor delay with history of anemia in mother requiring blood transfusion. The probable system involved is hematological.
Before you go ahead, I just have a few questions.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, good presentation. I should say that you had covered almost all the points. But if we can go back to your slides, there were 2-3 points which caught my attention. This is the third child, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What happened to the first 2 children? There was nothing about the first 2 children.
They are normal, sir.
So normal meaning?
They are developmentally normal.
Okay.
Without any history of anemia, sir.
Okay. So you didn't ask about their nutritional status? Because
yes,
they come from Odisha, isn't it?
Odisha, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So and they've been here for quite some time?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So in which part of Odisha are they coming from? Did you ever inquire about that?
No, sir. They are from Odisha, sir. Odisha.
Yeah, I understand. Odisha are one and the same. But is there any significance in trying to find out which part of Odisha are they coming from?
Yes, sir. They might be from beta thalassemia belt.
Okay. So did you try to find out what are the areas where the beta thalassemia belt would be likely to be present? Odisha has got a hilly area, and then it has got a coastal area, and it has also got plains. So which area are they likely to be from?
Hilly area, sir.
Okay. So are they tribals? Did you ever check it out?
Sir, couldn't elicit the history, sir.
Okay. Did you ask about other children? One is 6 years old. Did you ever ask whether that child suffered from recurrent leg pains or pains?
Yes, sir. I asked for the history, but they were normal children, sir.
So why do you ask for history of pain in the other children, or in the mother, or in the father? Pain which does not. Yeah, go ahead.
Sickle cell crisis, sir.
So sickle cell anemia per se can produce pain, unexplained pain in 33% of the cases. Okay, can we just go back further?
Okay, sir.
Go back further. Yeah, so that is it. Can we go to the developmental history?
Yes, sir.
So you think it is developmental quotient is only for 64%?
Yes, sir.
Why do you say that it is delayed a bit? Because 64% is not a small delay.
Yes, sir. So the development was normal till 6 months of age, sir.
Okay.
After that, only there was delay, sir. Maybe due to anemia and chronic nutrition, there might be a gross motor delay, sir. Now,
what is the kind of delay that you expect in a child with suspected anemia?
Sir, usually there will be a gross motor delay, sir.
What is the reason for it?
There will be muscle mass will be low, sir.
Good. Their muscle mass is poor and they are not able to support their weight.
Yes,
So
sir.
you expect a gross motor delay. Fine. So can we go to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next slide, please. The diet history. I was interested in the diet history next. Yeah. So it was exclusively breastfed till 1 year, 2 months.
Yes, sir.
So which means this child is also now 1 year, 2 months.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what type of would that contribute to the developmental delay?
Yes, sir. It can contribute, sir.
So how does it contribute?
Sir, delayed initiation of complementary feeding itself can lead to malnutrition and micronutrition deficit, which
Okay.
which in turn can cause developmental delay, sir.
So the usual this thing is protein calorie malnutrition, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So again, muscle mass development may not be as good as you expect.
Yes, sir.
And you said that a 1 year, 2 month old mother is likely to secrete up to 600 ml. What is the average secretion at the end of a year?
So at the end of the year, there will be only 150 to 200 ml, sir.
Yeah.
But since the child was exclusively breastfed, we thought that maybe there might be increased secretion.
I don't know. I don't think so. It usually is just about 400 ml max. Okay. So now the other members of the panel, do they have any questions?
Yes, sir. Can I just add few
please.
suggestions? Actually, her presentation, as you said, is very clean and clear. So just one suggestion. I don't know if it's right. Like she said, like no history of pica, which rules out iron deficiency, and no history of so and so, which rules out. I think those are suggestive, but absence of those symptoms, we cannot take it as ruling out a so-called iron deficiency anemia or so on. That is one thing.
Very true.
And I think you should. You said, Dr. Shaini, like history of palpitation. How do we elicit the history of palpitation in a 1 year old baby?
Sir, increased precordial activity.
Maybe you can mention it there. Instead of no history of palpitation, you can say no history of increased precordial activity as felt by the mother. So at the end of summary, you said like the system involved is likely hematological. So with the given history in so many aspects, like what, if can you further delineate what part of hematology and what could be the etiology just based on history? Like after examination, it may change, but based on history, what you think is happening inside for sure?
It could be a nutritional anemia.
Okay.
Or else due to the age of presentation with the upper abdominal distension and gross motor delay, it could be a hemolytic anemia too, sir, with the child hailing from Odisha.
Okay, sure. So
can I ask one question, please?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ravichandran, can I make a comment?
Yes, sir, please.
A 1.5-year-old child, the mother saying lethargy is a very surprising term for this thing. Well, how can you talk about lethargy in such a small child? Okay, you can say, of course, Orissa being a language, if she doesn't talk in Tamil, then it might have been misunderstood. The child may not be active, that may be the word to be used, less activity than the other children, and delayed milestones would have been a better, because she has definitely a milestones delayed. She should have presented as a delayed milestone, as the mother has said. That's what I felt. I don't know what exactly the mother had done.
Okay.
Can this be iron deficiency anemia? Are there any points in favor of iron deficiency anemia in this child?
Yes, sir. There is delayed complementary feeding, and
Okay.
predominantly the child was having milk only, and there was no supplementation was given.
Actually, you should start that from the interpregnancy interval onwards.
Yes, sir.
I think it is
The
6
mother
years, 3
also,
years, and 6 years, 3 years, and this baby was born after 3 years, isn't it?
yes, sir.
So the interpregnancy interval is okay.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Then
sir.
comes the antenatal period. And so irregular iron take, that could be one factor.
Yes, sir.
Mother was found to be anemic, treated with 4 doses of injection iron sucrose, and even then
Anemia was not correct.
was still present. Transfusion suggested, maybe she didn't get it. Okay. Then number 2, number 3, what else could be there? Factors which could help you in saying that this could be the iron deficiency anemia, which is likely to be there. Apart from your pica in exclusive breastfed babies, and that to a baby who is not moving around.
Okay.
Right. Next. Anything else? You also gave me that it was a 2.6 kg baby weight, so that is a point not in favor. If it was a preterm delivery with a low birth weight, and then we do not know the current weight, but if the current weight has been rapid growth, then it is more likely to be an iron deficiency anemia. Okay, the presentation of upper abdominal distension, with possibly the mother would not have noticed a jaundice, but if you ask her, she would have said that there could be a little bit of prolonged jaundice.
Sir, I asked for the history, but she said that she didn't notice, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Upper abdominal distension with the inactivity, period of inactivity, first thing that comes to mind is a hemolytic anemia.
Yes,
would you like to give other differential diagnosis? Not only of hemolytic anemia, but are there other anemias which could cause all this?
So even vitamin B12 deficiency can also cause that.
So what would be the striking feature with vitamin B12 deficiency?
Sir, there might be knuckle hyperpigmentation, sir.
Okay.
And then there might be pancytopenia too. So there might be recurrent infection and all that, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Coming to the neonatal history. So why did you ask for the no history of any neonatal jaundice in this child?
Ma'am, history of neonatal jaundice will be there in hereditary spherocytosis. There might be intensive jaundice there, which might require intensive therapy like exchange transfusion.
Okay, this child is presenting at the age of around 7 to 8 months of age.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any correlation?
It might be beta thalassemia, ma'am, according to the age of presentation.
Any other cause for neonatal jaundice? Only hereditary spherocytosis?
RH isoimmunization or ABO incompatibility.
Then? Any other cause?
And in congenital infections also there might be neonatal jaundice, ma'am.
Any other conditions? G6PD deficiency. Since this is a girl child, it's unlikely G6PD deficiency. Then any other condition, any enzyme defect can present with neonatal jaundice requiring any exchange transfusion at the newborn period itself?
Pyruvate kinase deficiency can present a bit early, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead with your presentation.
General examination, child was comfortable at rest, lethargic, afebrile, hydration adequate, severe pallor present, mild icterus present, no cyanosis, no clubbing, pedal edema or generalized lymphadenopathy. Head to foot examination, the child had frontal bossing, depressed nasal bridge and malar prominence. The oral cavity, there was pallor present. There was no angular stomatitis, cheilitis or glossitis. The skin was pale, no hyperpigmentations. The nails had pallor. There was no chylonychia. Venous hum was felt. Limbs and chest normal, abdomen distended, genitalia normal, spine normal. Vitals, heart rate 112 per minute, regular in rhythm, high volume. All peripheral pulses felt equally, no radioradial or radiofemoral delay. Capillary refill time less than 2 seconds. Perfusion was normal. Respiratory rate 30 per minute, abdominothoracic type. BP 90 per 60 millimeter of mercury as measured in right arm in supine position using appropriate cuff. Temperature 98 degree Fahrenheit. Anthropometry, the weight for age of the child was 5.8 kg against expected 9.5 kg, which is less than -3 standard deviation, suggesting severe underweight. Height for age of the child is 68 centimeter against the expected 76 centimeter, which is also less than -3 standard deviation, suggesting severe stunting. Head circumference was 45 centimeter, which lies between 3rd and 50th percentile, which was normal. The mid upper arm circumference was 11.2 centimeter, suggesting severe acute malnutrition. And weight for height of the child was 5.8 kg against the expected 7.9 kg, which is also less than -3 standard deviation, suggesting severe wasting. The anthropometry is suggestive of acute and chronic malnutrition.
The expected were all from the WHO standards?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Systemic examination, abdominal examination, inspection, abdomen distended, flanks free, all quadrants move equally with respiration, umbilicus inverted and displaced downward, skin over the abdomen normal, no dilated veins, scars or sinuses, no visible pulsation or peristalsis, hernial orifices free, external genitalia normal. Palpation, no warmth, no tenderness, liver palpable 3 centimeter below the right costal margin in the midclavicular line, moves with respiration, firm in consistency, margins well defined, not tender. Spleen 6 centimeter below the left costal margin, firm in consistency, splenic notch felt, non-tender, moves with respiration, not palatable, not bimanually palpable, not able to insinuate the finger into the costal margin, no fluid thrill. On percussion, dullness was felt over the mass in the right and left hypochondrium. Liver span was 9 centimeter, no free fluids. On auscultation, bowel sounds heard, no bruit, hepatic or splenic rub. Serious examination, the apex beat was felt at left fourth intercostal space, just lateral to the midclavicular line. S1, S2 heard, soft systolic murmur of grade 2 heard in the pulmonary area, no radiation was there. Respiratory system, bilateral air entry present, no added sound. CNS, no focal neurological deficit. The positive findings from examination were severe anemia, mild icterus, hemolytic phases, hepatosplenomegaly, acute and chronic malnutrition. So a case of severe anemia with hepatosplenomegaly with severe acute and chronic malnutrition, the diagnosis must be chronic hemolytic anemia, most probably beta thalassemia major.
Can it be something else?
Sir, it could be, that was hemolytic phases, sir, and the age of presentation and hepatosplenomegaly with the chronic malnutrition, all are suggestive of beta thalassemia, sir. If it was a
Will
bit
it be seen only with the beta thalassemia major? The findings that you said, presence of jaundice, anemia, hepatosplenomegaly. All it tells you is that it is hemolytic anemia.
Yes, sir.
So what I am asking is, what are the other possible hemolytic anemia conditions which came to your mind? Because you have made up your mind that it is beta thal major.
Yes, sir.
Would it be
Sir, other than
any
that,
other hemolytic anemia?
It could be hereditary spherocytosis, sir, but the presentation would have been a bit earlier, sir. Could be pyruvate kind. Sir, in the newborn period itself, it will be present, sir.
It may not be present in all cases. What is the point against hereditary spherocytosis in this child? Clinical presentation.
So jaundice will be severe, sir. It will be noticed by the mother, sir.
Okay, one. And, anything else?
There family history of gallstones and
family, the always
autosomal dominant, sir, hereditary spherocytosis.
Okay.
So there might be a family history, sir.
So how do you find out whether somebody in the family is likely to have a hemolytic anemia? Hereditary spherocytosis.
So we can ask for jaundice history, sir.
Okay.
And we can ask for abdominal surgeries.
Okay. So, will they notice it generally?
Special history. Sir, if it went for it might present as gallstones, which can lead to obstructive jaundice, sir.
That is okay. The
gallstone
business is fine. I am asking you about the jaundice, which you said jaundice would be present in the family. So actually, who asked this question? Is it the family members themselves notice that they have jaundice?
Sir, the other
the
neighbors might ask.
Yeah, generally the family, they already have seen this case right from the beginning. So there would always be somebody with this kind of jaundice. So the question usually comes from people who are not related to them. So they will come and ask, saying that you look slightly yellowish. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So that kind of history is not there. Number one. What is the other one in the clinical presentation that this child had, which is not likely to be hereditary spherocytosis, pointing towards hereditary spherocytosis?
Age of presentation, sir.
One is age of presentation. I said it can happen anytime. It need not be only in the newborn period. Yes, they will have a strong history of neonatal jaundice.
Yes.
Apart from that, would you have the kind of hemolytic phases that you saw in this child?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, so that is a point against. Other hemolytic anemias? What else came to your mind?
Pyruvate kinase deficiency, sir.
Is it enzyme deficiency?
Sir, yeah, sir. Enzyme deficiency.
Points in favor?
Sir, hepatosplenomegaly and hemolysis, sir. Hemolytic anemia. But it will also present yearly, sir.
Dr. Vinod, your comments. Is it likely to be an enzymatic deficiency?
Actually, enzyme deficiencies usually cause intravascular hemolysis. So, liver, spleen enlargement, presence of hemolytic phases are all against enzyme deficiency. So, usually they present with episodic hemolysis following any stressor. That's how G6PD manifests. So, this is against a very rare variety of G6PD may be like this, but for all practical purposes, we cannot treat as G6PD.
The hepatosplenomegaly and hemolytic phases is against an enzymatic deficiency. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
You said hemolytic, something dyserythropoietic can we consider?
Congenital dyserythropoietic anemia.
Okay. So that can also be kept in mind?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Acquired, you said congenital hemolytic, can it be an acquired hemolytic?
So acquired will be like they'll have acute presentation, sir.
Any example for give an example for acquired hemolytic anemia, which presents with the hepatosplenomegaly anemia?
So parvovirus infection.
Parvo causes aplastic. Aplastic anemia. So sorry, hemolytic anemia, congenital. I think most of which was discussed. Acquired hemolytic anemia. Maybe the age is not in favor, but say in an older child, 5, 6 year, 10 year and all, So if you have a hemolytic anemia, what would you consider?
Autoimmune hemolytic anemia, sir.
Okay. But at this age, autoimmune may be less likely. But in older children, yeah, the warm type of autoimmune hemolysis can have similar anemia, hepatosplenomegaly, and jaundice.
Okay, with that, with these conditions in your mind, so what would be your first step of investigation?
So CBC with RBC indices
Is that enough?
and the peripheral smear, sir.
So
At
I'll
reticulocyte.
put both together, okay? CBC with RBC indices and a peripheral smear. Okay, so what is it that you are likely to find?
Sir, in CBC, we can look for other lineage involvement, sir. If there is,
I
and
think
then
once you have said CBC with RBC indices, I think you should stick only to that first. And then
okay,
you
sir.
look at the other lineage, okay?
Okay, sir.
Right. So what do you expect in RBC indices? What would be the finding?
Microcytic hypochromic picture will be there, sir.
CBC will not tell you microcytic hypochromic.
MCV will be, MCV and MCH will be reduced, sir.
Okay. Then what happens to the RBCs?
So the RBCs here, there will be ineffective erythropoiesis, sir, and if the beta thalassemia, so it might be reduced, sir.
The RBC may be reduced. Supposing
Yes,
I tell you that the RBCs are actually here increased. So what comes to your mind?
Sir, thalassemia trait, beta thalassemia trait, sir.
Okay. There is one more condition which you could have kept in mind, and that would be sickle beta.
Yes, sir.
With the beta thal predominant. That also
Yes,
will
sir.
present something like this. And they also come from Orissa.
Yes, sir.
Orissa belt is more known for sickle rather than thal. Not that they don't have thal at all. Sickle beta thal.
Okay.
Okay. So RBC's MCV is going to be reduced. MCG is going to be reduced. RBC's, the numbers may be reduced. Yes. Now look at the smear and tell me what is it that you are likely to see. What would be the clinching point?
Target cells, sir.
Okay.
And fragmented RBCs.
Okay. Fragmented RBCs are
Anisopoitrocytosis.
present in all hemolytic anemias.
Yes.
Okay. So the clinching point is the presence of target cells.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then.
Other than that,
Sir, then the LFT, there will be.
I think we had a question from Dr. Lakshmi.
yes, sir.
Please
Other than
go ahead.
target cells, what other cells are being seen in peripheral smear in a child with thalassemia?
Fragmented cells will be seen, ma'am.
Okay. Then how will be the size?
Cells.
Basic one.
Microcytic hypochromic picture will be there, ma'am.
So what are the DDs for that?
Ma'am, iron deficiency anemia.
Okay.
Sideroblastic anemia, lead poisoning, anemia of chronic diseases. Initially, there will be normocytic. In a later state, there might be microcytic hypochromic picture, ma'am.
How to differentiate between these iron deficiency anemia and due to thalassemia?
Ma'am, iron deficiency anemia and beta thalassemia, RDW will be increased in iron deficiency anemia, ma'am. In thal trait, it will be normal, ma'am, narrower. And then Menster index, ma'am, in iron deficiency anemia, both RBCs and MCV will be reduced, ma'am. So if Menser index will be more than 13, but in beta thalassemia trait, RBCs will be maintained, ma'am. So Menser will be less than 13.
What will be about a reticulocyte count in case of thalassemia?
In beta thal trait, Ma'am, due to ineffective erythropoiesis, there might be relative reticulocytopenia, ma'am.
Okay.
This child, you're suspecting it to be beta thal major, isn't it?
Yes.
So now you can rephrase the answers that you gave Dr. Lakshmi. That was for the beta thal trait as such. Now, what will happen to the RDW with beta thal major?
Sir, it might be wider, sir.
Can be wider. Okay,
Yes, sir.
it can be wider. So the RDW is applicable only if you suspect beta thal trait.
Traits, sir.
Yeah. So LFT, why do you want to do an LFT?
So to look for hemolysis, if there is hemolysis, there might be increase in unconjugated bilirubin, sir.
Can we just put it as only look for bilirubin, unconjugated bilirubin? Or do you want to ask for the entire panel of LFT?
Entire panel of LFT we can do, sir.
Why?
So
In
to
this
rule
child.
out in this child,
In this child, why do you want a full LFT?
sir, if we are transfusing the child, if
This child has
they
not
are
yet
on
been transfused, isn't it?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This child has not yet been transfused.
No, sir.
Okay. If the same child comes to you after 5 years, would you do an LFT?
Yes, sir.
So for what? Why do you want to do LFT in the same child after 5 years?
So to there might be jaundice due to there might be hepatitis due to transfusion related infections, hepatitis.
Okay, that is one. That is one reason. Then
iron overload, sir. So, and
okay, two.
Toxicity of iron chelators like Xerox.
3.
And
Could this child have a gallstone?
less likely, sir.
Is there any age specific period for a gallstone?
No, sir.
Okay. You also put serum iron, serum ferritin, TIBC, and transferrin saturation. And your diagnosis was primarily hemolytic anemia.
Yes, sir.
So why do you want to do all this?
But initially, because of the nutritional status, I thought of looking for nutritional anemia too, sir. So,
Okay. Why do you want a DCT?
so to rule out autoimmune anemia, sir.
I would rather look at the CPC with the RBC indices first. And if
Yes,
I see
sir.
a macrocyte, or if I see in the peripheral smear a spherocyte, then I would look for a DCT. In this child, it has not yet been transfused. So I don't see the funda of doing a DCT in this child as such.
Okay, sir.
Okay. I think Dr. Vinod may comment.
Yes, I just some 2 questions. So coming back to CBC, like what do we see in the white cell counts in thalassemia major, clean thalassemia major? What would be the presenting white cell count?
Oh, CBC. Perfect.
Sir, it might be normal with a relative lymphocytosis, or that sometimes it might be elevated in CBC, sir,
Right.
which might be due to the nucleated RBCs counted as WBCs, sir.
Oh, great, great. So similarly in peripheral smear also you can add that finding. NRBCs will be seen, and
Yes, sir.
spuriously WBC can be elevated to the tune even 40-50,000. Suddenly we may think of leukemia, but all those elevated white cell count are actually nucleated RBCs, which is falsely counted as a WBC by the Coulter machine. So peripheral smear will clarify it that the actual white cell count is normal, but NRBCs are falsely counted. And you said Menser index, all those things. Will it be applicable to THAL major, or it is just for THAL trait and iron deficiency? Menser
THAL
index.
trait and iron deficiencies.
Okay, so in a clear-cut presentation like this, maybe it's less useful, but in a OPD patient with pure microcytic anemia with no liver spleen, to differentiate these two, we can use it. Yeah. Again, I will, the order of investigations, I think we should rearrange. So minimum investigations at the first visit to guide further specific investigation rather than putting all these together. The CBC, red cell indices, peripheral smear, reticulocyte count, and bilirubin, based on which we can directly go to HB electrophoresis or HPLC if it is suggestive of thal major. Then our diagnosis is done there. That's it.
Go ahead with your presentation. Let us see what was the finding.
So here the child had hemoglobin of 3.9 grams, sir, and RBC 1.5 million, which was reduced. MCV was low, MCH low, MCHC was also low. Reticulocyte count was 3.8%, but relatively it was low, so for hemoglobin of 3.9 grams.
What is corrected retic count?
So corrected retic count is patient's hemoglobin by normal HB into reticulocyte count, or patient's hematocrit by normal hematocrit into reticulocyte count, sir.
So what was the value here? You didn't do that.
Yes, sir.
That's fine. Go ahead. You should always, once you see a retic count, which looks slightly higher than what we expect, then you should always look at the corrected retic count. Okay.
Okay, sir. Reticulocyte index was only 0.3%, sir, for this case.
Okay. TC, did you look at corrected TC?
No, sir. Total count was 11,500 in the peripheral smear, but it was given as normal only, sir. Or
how many nucleated RBCs were seen per 100 WBC counted?
that was not given in the report, sir.
Okay, so that gives a clue as to the actual the correction factor that is needed. Okay, right.
Yes,
so we have seen MCHC anemia and no nucleated RBC seen. Yeah, we have to change the panel. I'm not able to see the finding here.
Sir,
Peripheral smear, MCHC anemia and
anemia, markedly reduced RBC with target cells, sir.
only that much was given.
Sir, WBC count was normal, and platelets was also normal, sir. That
No,
was
the comment about the RBCs. Only that much was given.
Sir, anisopoikilocytosis and polychromasia was there, sir.
Okay.
And nucleated RBCs were also there, sir.
That is what. Did they do a differential count and do the number of nucleated RBCs per 100 WBCs? That would have told you about the actual TC. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. Next slide.
So we did the high performance liquid chromatography for this child, and both the parents and one of the siblings. One of the sibling was out of town.
Just comment about the HPLC values.
Sir, in a patient, the HbA was 7.8%, HbA2 was 3.9%, and HbF was 72.2%. There was elevated HbF, sir, which suggests homozygous or double heterozygous beta thalassemia. And for father and one of the sibling, HbA2 was elevated, sir. Which suggests beta thalassemia trait, but in mother, both HbA2, HbF and HbS, so HbF and HbS both are elevated, sir. So it suggests compound heterozygous sickle cell anemia with beta thalassemia trait, sir.
We would have been justified in keeping sickle beta thal as part of the diagnosis.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right. Next slide. Oh, you're finished.
Sir.
Okay. So what is your plan of treatment for this child?
So nutritional advice will be given to the mother, sir.
Okay.
And Then
So what
we have
exactly
to
is the
do,
nutritional advice that you are suggesting? This is a beta thal major child.
yes, sir.
Okay, so tell me what is it that you are going to tell this mother? 1 year, 2 months old child. So what is it that you're going to say?
So we should supplement with folic acid and calcium and all that, but should avoid iron-rich foods, sir.
See, saying that to the mother is very difficult. Tell her that you have to avoid iron-rich food. It's not what we expect. I'm asking you to counsel this mother on nutrition. So what is it that you're going to tell the mother? Calorie requirement, this child according to you is a SAM child also. Your final
Yes, sir.
diagnosis is not mentioned here. You finished with the HPLC and thanks. So what is the final diagnosis?
So the final diagnosis is chronic hemolytic anemia, beta thalassemia major with severe acute and chronic malnutrition, sir.
SAM.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now how will you treat this child?
Nutritional.
Which is more important to treat? Which is in emergency now?
Sir, anemia, correcting the anemia, sir. So
Okay.
I'll do a extended antigen testing for this child, sir.
Okay. What do you mean by extended antigen testing?
Sir, we'll also look for C, E, and Kel minor antigens in the blood, sir. Typing
A, B, C, D, all
E.
capitals and E, big E's,
Yes.
and then small c and small e and K.
Okay.
Okay. So why do you have to do it?
So to prevent alloimmunization, sir.
Okay, that is number one. So before you start a transfusion, supposing this child has already been transfused, say about 7 or 8 times.
Okay, sir.
Would you still do an extended antigen testing, or what else would you do?
Sir, we can do DCT to find out if there is alloimmunization, sir.
That is only if there is an increased requirement, because the moment you transfuse, the child will always have some amount of DCT 1 plus or 2 plus, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So supposing the child has come to you after 10 transfusions, they have not done an extended antigen testing in the first attempt. Okay, would you still go for extended antigen testing, or would you use some other technique? Or would you like to send this child to Dr. Vinod, who will do that particular test for you?
Yes, sir.
It is important, yes.
Blood
Usually do a molecular analysis. Am I right, Dr. Vinod?
Yes, sir, genotype.
Multiple transmissions, you should go for molecular analysis. Okay, very important. Okay, then. Okay, you're transfused because the need for hemoglobin is there, and so the transfusion is given. So that emergency has been dealt with. But then there is another emergency here. What is that emergency?
The nutrition, sir.
Yeah. So how are you going to manage it?
So resuscitative phase and resuscitation, restoration, and
Go ahead. Quickly finish it off. So what are the things that you are going to do? How are you going to calculate the calories?
Sir, for the expected weight, the calories should be 100 to 150 kilocalories per kg, sir.
Okay. So you already put the expected at 7.9 kgs, isn't it?
So 9.5 kg, sir.
Oh, that we are looking at the median.
Yes, sir.
So that is 7.9. So calculate for 7.9 first, and then you can increase it to 9.5. Okay,
yes,
then what would you do?
F75 diet. I'll start with F75, sir.
Why do you have to start with F75 diet? This child is breastfeeding.
Yes, sir.
This child is breastfeeding. This is a stable child, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A stable child, how will you go ahead?
Sir, I'll start with complementary feeding, sir.
What is it that you are going to look at? 1 year, 2 months, what does IMNCI or IYCF says?
So frequency of feeds.
Okay, number 1, how much of food to give?
Initially, there should be small frequency, sir. It can go up to 7 times a day.
What?
So we can start with cereals, sir.
ரொம்ப சிம்பிள் பா. வீட்ல என்ன வச்சிருக்காங்களோ அதான் கொடுக்க போறாங்க.
Homemade food.
Family pot.
ஓ அத சொல்லுங்க, எப்படி கொடுக்க போறீங்கன்னு சொல்லுங்க, வேற ஒண்ணும் கிடையாது. You don't have to be very what you call formal and say that I will give cereals, I'll give proteins. இதெல்லாம் தான் பிரச்சனை. வீட்ல they are from an upper.
Very energy rich food should be given, sir. So
அது சிம்பிளா அவங்க லாங்குவேஜ்ல எப்படி சொல்லுவீங்க அதான் கேக்குறேன், வேற ஒண்ணுமே
you should add oil, ghee and jaggery or sugars to the diet, sir.
எவ்வளவு ஆட் பண்ணுவீங்க? Because this mother you have to teach her, you are going to tell her what exactly you are going to tell. அதான் கேக்குறேன், வேற எதுவும் கிடையாது.
Okay, sir. So in each feed we can add 1 spoon of ghee or oil, sir.
Okay, அதுக்கப்புறம்
We can add sugar.
How much of food to give? How much of what is the portion? What is the frequency? What it should contain? What would you add to improve the calorie value? Because this child will not be able to eat so much. There are 2 factors which are going to inhibit it. One is the presence of such a huge hepatosplenomegaly. Konja saaptale papa vandu it will become difficult for the child. In fact, it might have a mild respiratory distress if you overfeed it at a time. Yeah. So adanaala you have to tell her that this is the amount of food you can give. For this amount of food you have to add this amount of oil and the frequency should be at this time and gradually increase it. Avladhaan venum illaya? Right. Dr. Nagalakshmi, you have questions? Nutrition is your cup of tea.
So how much calories you give? Maximum amount of calories, and how much protein you'll give? Hello.
Ma'am, for this child, we will give for the expected age 100 kilocalories.
At the beginning, you'll give 100. Then later,
120 to 130 kilocalories, ma'am.
You can increase up to. Maximum calorie. What is the maximum calorie that can be given?
200 kilocalories.
175 to 200 kilocalories. And what's the maximum amount of protein that can be given?
Ma'am, 2 gram per kg.
When you're starting, you can start with 1 gram per kg. Maximum amount of protein that can be given. 5 to 6 grams, you can give up to 5 to 6 grams per kg. So what's the amount of fluid? What is the intake output chart for this child?
Ma'am, intake output, we should calculate as 15 ml per kg.
No, it's not the fluid I'm asking. What is the intake output?
Ma'am, how much food is prepared and how much the child ate and how much they vomited or left out. We should put a chart, ma'am.
Okay, that is the intake output. Coming to the fluids, what is the amount of fluid that can be given?
30 ml per kg per day.
Okay. Now this child is 1 year 2 months. He has been, let us assume that he has been transfused a few times.
Yes, sir. For the first 10 kg, 100 ml, sir. 100 ml per kg, and then
Breaking.
I can't hear. Is the meeting going on?
Sir, I'm not able to hear.
And the other participants answer. She's not able to
5
answer.
5 ml per
130 ml per kg per day, up to 200 ml per kg per day.
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Lakshmi, you have to take over. Dr. Ravichandran is not there. I think.
Hello, sir. I can't hear.
Dr. Ravichandran has dropped a message in the group that there has been a power cut and his internet is not working.
Dr. Lakshmi, you have to unmute. And
Ravichandran sir has dropped a message in the group.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, his internet is not working, it seems.
Okay, sir.
I think he has joined back.
Sorry, we had an outage. I'm sorry. I went out because of an outage. So please go ahead.
Sir, if we
Am I audible?
yes, sir.
Sorry, I had an outage. And so I was out of out of the program for a couple of minutes. Can you just go ahead, please? So that I will know that I can find out what were the questions later on. Were there any questions? Further questions?
No, sir,
No, sir.
No, sir.
it was held for 2-3 minutes. Yeah, it was breaking.
Okay. So so how much of blood to be transfused? You'll have to plan a transfusion also, isn't it? The SAM part
Yes.
you have taken care of. I'm fine with that. So now you have to plan the transfusion regime. So how are you going to transfuse? How are you going to plan it?
So we should transfuse so that the post transfusion HB should be between 13 to 15 grams, sir. And pre transfusion HB should be more than 9, sir.
What is so sacrosanct about that 9? Why do you want to keep it at pre-transfusion levels at 9?
So to prevent ineffective erythropoiesis.
Okay. So what are the problems of ineffective erythropoiesis?
It may cause extramedullary hematopoiesis, sir, which can lead to hepatosplenomegaly, and it can also lead to iron overload, sir.
Okay. But more important, growth retardation.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then what else?
It can
What else?
after transfusion for 1 year, 15 more than 15 transfusion, or if the serum ferritin is more than 1000 nanogram per ml, we should start the child on iron chelator, sir.
Okay. Okay. Then
We should monitor the
the monitoring part I'll
child.
come later. Well, let us also look at one more thing. One is that you will plan the transfusion therapy. Keep the pre-transfusion levels above 9.5 gram.
Okay, sir.
Fair enough. The next point is you said you were talking about avoiding iron-rich food. So what are the iron-rich food that commonly people take, and how are you going to avoid it?
Sir, jaggery, spinach.
Okay.
Drumstick leaves.
It's a non-vegetarian diet, sir.
You can't tell them. See, she is Sam, and she has to be given protein, and you say that I will not give non-vegetarian diet.
Offals.
Offals we can avoid, sir.
Okay. Then, okay, she can
Iron
still.
pan we can avoid cooking in iron pan, sir.
Okay. Then, can you do also something slightly different? You can prevent the iron that is being given from being absorbed. So how will you do that?
Sir, we can give it along with milk or calcium.
Sir, this child is only 1 year and 2 months old. We can't give tea for this child, sir.
Tea.
If we give tea after every meal, that will inhibit the absorption of iron.
Exactly. So recommend that. Generally, we don't recommend tea for a child, but for these children, you can always recommend tea immediately after food. It should be immediately after food. Okay, right. So you would have planned that. Now you tell me, how will you monitor this child? What would you do at different levels? What would you monitor every time the child comes to you?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
In serum ferritin is an acute phase reactant. It can be elevated in other conditions also. Maybe if the child is having an infection or an inflammation. So to differentiate whether it is due to iron overload or some other cause, what are the other measurement you can do to find out that there is an iron overload in this child?
Ma'am, we can do liver iron.
Other than that, liver iron, it's an invasive procedure.
Yes, ma'am.
Non-invasive method of determination of iron overload in this child.
MRI for liver and cardiac MRI can be done, ma'am. T2 Wade.
Very simple investigation.
Wait, ma'am.
It is the most complicated.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
I can't hear you.
I think she is lost. So you will have to help her out.
Hello?
The question, is there any other test which you can do?
Other than serum ferritin.
Iron prof.
Serum transferrin saturation. If it is
Iron prof.
I would like Dr. Vinod to comment on that.
Actually, generally we do ferritin in thalassemia patients when there is no infection. So ferritin in thalassemia is not an emergency. So if there is any like URA, LRA infection, better don't do ferritin. So when on the next visit, when the child is fine, better to go ahead with ferritin because serial monitoring is important. So better, the cheapest and practically available investigation is ferritin. So practically we have to rely on ferritin for serial monitoring. Better to avoid during infection inflammation.
Yeah. That is the simplest way of doing it. So if there is an infection in the child currently, then there is no need to do ferritin. You don't have to do ferritin every time, isn't it? So usually you do it after 10 transfusions, basically. And after 10 transfusions, you do it, and then then it becomes a serial monitoring. And so it is not every month. So you do it once in 6 months, basically. Okay. So at that time, if you think the child has an infection, you can just simply postpone it by a month. So no harm in it. And if your serum serotonin values are much higher than what you expect, the child has come and inadvertently you have done it. And then you can ask about history of any recent infections and other things rather than do the other test basically. So when will you do an MRI? Now that you have told me that you want to do an MRI, I'm interested in finding out at what stage of this child's life would you do an MRI?
Sir, after 5 years only, there will be development of liver fibrosis, and more than 7 years only, there will be cardiac dysfunction. So I'll do after 8 years.
The consensus is that you will usually look for this kind of finding. It doesn't happen at 5 or 7, and usually about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. And so at 10 years of transfusion, you are supposed to do a certain set of investigations. Okay, so we will come to that in the next stage. But when you monitor, you said that you would do a pre-transfusion every month.
Yes, sir.
So I said you have to plan the transfusion. How much to transfuse? And then at what levels? And what is the volume? So all the three should be fixed.
Yes, sir. Transfusion should be 15 to 20 ml per kg, sir.
Of what?
Packed cells, sir. Leukodepleted, triple saline washed.
Okay.
Washed,
So
packed.
what is the advantage of doing both the procedures?
Sir, to avoid leukodepletion will avoid febrile non-hemolytic transfusion reaction, sir.
Okay.
And also
another important one.
allo immunization is also
avoided. Okay. What is the point of washing it? Triple saline wash. What is the point? Why do you want to do that? Yes, you are right. Why do you want to do that? So for that, you should know about different types of transfusion reactions. Okay. So one of the thing is that you will have to remove off all the
cytokines.
Yeah. Don't say that you want to reduce the WBCs by doing a triple wash. It is not so.
Cytokines.
Okay. How much you said? So what is the frequency? You have to ask them to come.
Sir,
for the next transfusion.
Usually by 21 days to 1 month, sir, but it depends on the pre-transfusion HP, sir.
But anyway, first time when they come, you have to tell them a specific date, isn't it?
Yes,
so
sir.
what is it that you do?
After 21 days, I'll ask them.
You can do it from anywhere between 2 weeks to 5 months. It depends on, as you said, right? So 2 weeks later, you ask them to come, check the hemoglobin. If the hemoglobin levels are good, there are a lot of transfusion regimes as such. There are people who give once in 2 weeks. There are advantages, disadvantages. Okay, so I don't think this would be the problem. I mean, this would be the forum to discuss all that. But anyway, yes, from 2 weeks to 5 months, up to that also. Fine. Okay. So now that we know that you have to give 15 ml to 20 ml per kg, and you have to give it over how many hours? That is the next one. Because when you transfuse, you have to look at that also.
2 to 2.5 hours, sir. Within 4 hours from the time we got it from the blood bank, sir.
So what happens if you transfuse it beyond 4 hours?
So there might be reaction, bacterial contamination might happen,
One,
sir.
and then more important, more than that.
There might be lysis.
So,
Lysis, sir.
so what happens?
There might not be efficient increase in
No, potassium.
potassium.
Isn't it? Serum potassium levels increase. Okay, then, so now you have started the transfusion regime. So you have done after 10 transfusions at serum ferritin levels. Okay, so now you tell me what are the things that you would monitor every month if the child is asked to come every month.
So pre-transfusion HB.
One.
And RFT and LFT, sir, for iron chelator toxicity.
You have just started. So we will look at it at a later phase. What else should you monitor?
Spleen and liver size, sir.
Okay, 2. More important. Growth parameters.
Growth parameters.
You have to serially plot the growth because that is one of the key indicators of a efficient transfusion. Okay, yes. Right. So when will you ask for a DCT?
DCT after if there is an increase in requirement of let that might be allo immunization, sir. If we suspect allo immunization, we should ask for DCT, sir.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So what are the indicators of a transfusion not doing well or not giving you the expected results?
One might be inadequate transfusion, sir.
So, what are the indicators first and then the reason?
So growth faltering.
Okay.
Increased extramedullary hematopoiesis, sir. Liver and spleen.
Okay.
Iron over
increasing splenic size. Okay, then you're right. Go ahead. One more.
Iron
Worsening of hemolytic phases.
Yes, so worsening of hemolytic phases.
Okay. Then the patient comes to you with congestive cardiac failure or cardiomegaly and those kind of things, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Rajendran, do we have enough time or? I think we have given enough time for enough hard
What are the
time.
indications?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
What are the indications for starting an oral iron chelator in this?
More than 10 transfusions, ma'am, or serum ferritin level more than 1000 nanogram per ml.
So, what are the
Third
different
criteria?
types of third criteria? Yes.
Iron liver iron more than
8,000 microgram per
5,000 micro
5,000
microgram per
microgram per
gram, ma'am.
gram per dry weight of
Dry weight
liver
of
tissue.
liver.
Okay, what are the types of transfusions?
Moderate transfusion, hypertransfusion, super transfusions.
What is hypertransfusion?
Maintaining a pre-transfusion HB of more than 10, ma'am.
More than 10.
And,
it's more than 10?
Super transfusion
Or any
is more
specific
than,
range of value? Any range or only it's more than 10?
10 to 12, ma'am.
So hypertrans.
Transfusion more than 12, ma'am.
Hello.
Super transfusion more than 12, ma'am.
Super transfusion 12 to 14. I can't hear you.
And 12. Hypertransfusion 10 to 12, ma'am. Super transfusion
Okay.
12 to 14.
Yeah,
Okay,
just to
what are
clarify,
the
ma'am, just to clarify, we don't follow that anymore.
sir.
Basically, the idea
Okay,
is that a level more than 9.5 gram pre-transfusion levels helps in suppressing the growth. Yes, there were a lot of proponents for neocyte transfusions and then your hyper and super transfusions. But then what happened was the cost and the increasing exposure to multiple donors, because that had to be to get that kind of levels, you had to expose them to multiple donors. So allo immunization chances were much higher, and so nowadays all that have been given up. But
Okay, sir.
yeah, it was there. I agree with you on that. So what would be more interesting is to find out about the different types of chelation that she knows of.
Okay, sir.
So can you tell me the different types of chelators that are available, the advantages and disadvantages, and how you go about using it?
Desferoxamine, desferiprone, and desferasirox.
Okay, so tell me if you, yeah, tell me a few things
Desferoxamine
about.
has a half-life of less than 30 minutes, sir. And so we should transfuse it like IV or subcutaneous infusion, sir, for over 15 to 16 hours, 5 to 7 times a week, sir. So there won't be compliance with the patient, sir. So, and it also causes retinal toxicity, hearing impairment, and there is also local allergic reactions are also more common. So,
Very good chelator.
Yes, sir. Extravascular chelation, extracellular chelations.
It is one of the best chelators. The only problem is that it is a very cumbersome procedure, giving subcutaneous, and so the best way to do it is have a pump and then keep pushing it as you use an insulin pump or that kind of a thing. So not many centers do it. However, there is still a need for it if their levels are more than, if your serum ferritin levels are more than serum ferritin levels are very high, say 4,000, 5,000 and all, then it is still used. And where I need to reduce it fast so that I can push the child for a transplant, I would still use a desferoxamine.
Or in cardiac failure.
Yeah.
Cardiac failure, we have to give continuous IV infusion.
Yeah. So then it would be a better drug than the other two. Okay. Oral chelators?
Desferiprone and desferasirox, sir. Desferiprone has a half-life of 3 to 4 hours, and hence it should be given 3 to 4 times a day with a dose of 75 to 100 milligram per kg, but it causes agranulocytosis and arthralgia, sir. And desferasirox has a longer half-life, sir, 15 to 16 hours. Hence, it can be used as a single dose, sir, at empty stomach in the early morning with a cup of diluted and dissolved in a cup of water. And so compliance will be good. And it is given in a dose.
How do you give desferasirox?
Sir, dissolved in a cup of water in the early morning empty stomach.
No.
And the side of complications are renal failure and elevated liver enzymes.
Okay. Desferiprone?
agranulocytosis and arthralgia, sir.
You ever heard of shuttle therapy?
Both desferriprone and desferoxamine, sir. Extracellular and intracellular chelators at the same time, sir.
Mobilization of iron is much better when you give them as in a sequential way. That is called a shuttle. So from the inside intracellular to extracellular and then extracellular removal. So that is called a shuttle therapy. Agreed. Okay. So you have tested the siblings?
Sir, one of the siblings. Yes, sir. One of the sibling was out of town, sir. We tested one and he was a beta tal trait, sir.
Okay.
And,
now, yeah. So I mean, the question comes now. If that child matches, HLA matching is perfect with that child, what would you do?
I'll suggest transplantation, sir.
Even though the child is affected.
Yes, sir.
So what is the advantage?
Sir, well-matched sibling transfusion is much better than.
No, I'm not talking about transfusion. I'm talking about transplant.
As transplantation. Transplantation is much better, sir. And the beta thal major child will turn into beta thal traits.
Yeah. So the need for transfusion will drop down drastically, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So even if the other child has got a trait, I think you should go ahead with the transplant, provided it is fully matched. Okay. Right. So should we ask questions about genetics of beta thal?
Actually, at least prevention we should say, like now that one child is affected, we can't do much. How do we counsel the parents and what will you do to prevent another child with thal major in the same family?
Yeah.
Point 1, 2, 3.
Sir, if a child has beta thal major, both the parents might be thal trait, sir. We should tell that there is a chance for beta thalassemia major in 25% chance for beta thalassemia. Sir, since it is an autosomal recessive disease, there might be a chance that 25% might be beta thal major, 50% might be trait, and 25% might be normal. This can happen in every pregnancy, sir. So we should counsel the parents about that, and we should do genetic testing, sir.
First, whom would you do the genetic testing? Directly once the next baby is formed, you do the genetic testing, or you prepare before the mother becomes pregnant?
So we can do the genetic testing for the child affected child.
So first we should know what are all the genes mutated. There are more than 200 mutations of thalassemia. Identify what 2 mutations are present in the given child. So one is from the father, one is from the mother. So once they become pregnant again, we should do, then how do we do? Suddenly the mother comes and says that the urine pregnancy test is positive. So how do you proceed next?
Sir, we should counsel her for genetic testing, and we can do choriocentesis at 10 to 12 weeks or amniocentesis
chorionic villus sampling.
Chorionic villus sampling at 10 to 12 weeks.
11 completed weeks. Yeah. Okay. So you take the sample. What do you do with the sample?
Mutation analysis.
Yes. You have taken the serious sampling, so they have given you a container. So what do you do with that container? You will send it for gene testing. Yeah, you are right in your thoughts. You should say that, but So you
Mutation.
send it, say same mutations, you should look, the 2 mutations which you identified in the index patient, you look into the same mutations in the given sample, which is supposed to be from the fetus inside the mother. So the report comes then saying that one mutation is present, the other mutation is absent. So what would you, will you continue with the pregnancy or you suggest abortion, MTP?
So we can ask the mother that it could be a trait, and we can ask for their opinion, sir, if they want to continue or.
See, the AL trait cannot be an indication for abortion. See, the mother is a trait, father is a trait, they're all well asymptomatic. Why do you want to abort a thalassemia trait? Only if it is a thalassemia major, say both mutations are positive, so it is an indication for MTP. So one mutation present or no mutations present, so you can directly continue with the pregnancy. The chances of the child having thal major is not there, so we can continue. So one thing, you should avoid maternal cross contamination in the sample. So if they have taken samples from some mother's tissue, then it's going to be carrier. So they do some other gene test to rule out maternal contamination. And if it is a pure fetal sample, 2 mutations are not there, either 1 or 0, then continue with pregnancy. 2 mutations, abort. That's it. So it has to be fed into the parents on the first visit itself. Better. The prevention is better than cure. Right?
Sure.
So now we have come to that stage. I have 2 questions now. So till what weeks can you abort? Latest.
24 weeks.
20.
24 weeks.
Yeah.
20.
I'm getting another answer.
24 weeks.
Yeah, 24 weeks is the latest. So you can abort up to 24 weeks. Prior to that, it was only 20 weeks. So now you have up to 24 weeks. Okay. So that would be question about the abortions if needed. Now the next question is, are you aware of any programs which are run in the country for the hemoglobinopathies?
Sir, integrated centers for hemoglobinopathies and hemophilia.
Okay, so
In
say something about it.
Yes, sir.
So what is it?
So 9th standard and 11th standard children's, they test for HB and HB, sir, and RBC. They'll do Nestrov, sir. And then if it is positive, then
do they do
they'll
only
send the
Nestrov or do they
sample
do any
to
other thing?
tertiary care center.
Do they do only Nestrov or do they do anything else?
CBC, and if the HB is low, they will do a Nestrov, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ravichandran.
Yes, sir.
There was earlier, the same platform PG discussion, there was a discussion on thalassemia, and there was an invited faculty who has done a lot of work from Punjab. Okay. So did you attend as a PG? Have you attended that PG program? Of course, it must be available in YouTube also, the previous discussion. I think about 3 months back or something. Okay. So there is the question is national program. Is there a national program for thalassemia, hemoglobinopathies? So there was a mention about it. Okay.
So, and also we provide filters for transfusions for beta thalassemia, and
there are 2 components to the program. Okay, one is the screening, and the screening, is it universal or is it specific? Is the screening universal?
So they are doing for the sir, in the thalassemia belt, sir.
Okay.
Belt areas.
So basically, what has been found is that these cases predominantly come from the hilly areas. Number 1. Number 2, in the tribal belts where consanguinity is very, very rampant. Okay. So these have been taken for screening purposes. So in Tamil Nadu, initially we started with 10 blocks and right now it has been extended beyond that. Does Kanyakumari come under the belt? Is there a screening program for the Kanyakumari block?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, no, sir.
Kanyakumari has been included in the recent,
Yes.
from this year onwards. Okay. So Kanyakumari is supposed to develop a screening program for the Western Ghat area where the cases are likely to be present. Okay. As I said, there are two components to it. One is to prevent. So identify people who are trait. So for that, you do the screening for the 9th and 11th standard students, both boys and girls. Okay, two tests are done. One is Nestrov test, where the hemoglobin is low,
CBC.
and then CBC. Through CBC, they identify persons with low hemoglobin. So wherever it is iron deficiency, they are referred to the PHC. So it has got what you call an integrated approach to anemia as such. So they are treated with iron, okay, at the PHC level. So for those who are having low MCV, then they are subjected to do a Nestrov test and a solubility test. And these are done at the field level itself. The solubility test is to find out for sickle cell anemia. Okay. So once these two tests are positive, it is a screening test. Okay. So then that sample, so they would collect blood in two vials. One would be for the CBC and to do the test. And the other sample is sent to the medical college for HPLC, for running the HPLC. Okay. So if it is positive, then a cascade system of training of screening is done to identify the different siblings as well as the family members. Okay. And then counseling is given about the need to prevent a consanguineous marriage in them. Punjab has gone a long way. So when they prepare a kundali, you know what a kundali is? Kundali is
Yes, sir. Jadagam.
So they also give this card. The first thing they do is they look at the card to find out that whether they are positive or whether they are trait. And if they have that and these people are also trait, then they say that thanks, but no thanks to the marriage. Okay. So we are yet to reach the stage. That is the community part of it. The treatment part of it consists of having all of them being treated at one center, and that is your integrated center for ICHH, hemoglobinopathies and hemophilias. So these are walk-in centers, daycare centers, where these children are given transfusions and then they are followed up regularly. All your monitoring and everything is done. And these centers are supposed to cater to all the people with the hemoglobinopathies. It is not only pediatrics, even adults. Okay. And so those are the two components. Now we have gone one step further. So now we are going to do antenatal screening, and these are universal in all the tribal blocks. Here it is universal. Okay. Till now I was talking only about tribal block. Here now that district would be considered universal. They would be offered the test, and if they are positive, then a genetic testing is done. So that is going to be rolled out in the current year. Okay. So Srinivasan sir, you have anything apart from what I have said?
Already mentioned all the details. So good that so much is being done. I think you have grilled her enough. So she has answered well. So you have done a good job.
I know.
And almost extensive coverage for the same topic. Of course, it's very important because now a lot of cases are there, and of course, you know, MCE also, they always want to come and see whether you have thalassemia program going on in the pediatric department. Okay, transfusions for hemoglobinopathies, etc. So postgraduates should know all about hemoglobinopathies. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And so any other questions from the other panelists?
Just to
What is the
I want to ask one question to the experts. So, being iron deficiency being so common, okay, even a thalasssemic child, okay, is it possible to detect iron deficiency? Because before transfusion starts, okay, is there a possibility of iron deficiency being there in a child with hemolytic anemia before they go into a stage of repeated transfusion, etc.? Because there is so much of detection of RBCs, okay, at the same time they have iron deficiency, and of course there will be rapid turnover from the bone marrow. So what is your this thing? The doubt is in my mind, so I want clarification. Basically, iron
Usually,
deficiency is so common, especially in these cases. There is a rapid iron turnover. Is there a possibility of existing iron deficiency anemia when there is so much of demand for RBC protection? Just like folic acid and B12 deficiency can also be there.
can I go ahead first, Vinod, and then you can
Yes, sir.
add?
Please.
Yeah. See, so basically with TAL major, the chances of iron deficiency are that much, are very, very less because
Yeah, that
one
is
thing,
of course because they receive so much of transfusions and this thing.
sir, no, sir, even with before the first transfusion, what happens is when there is so much of hemolysis and there is anemia with hypoxia, the hepcidin levels are very low. And this in turn causes increased iron absorption. So from the food, there is generally when compared to a normal child and to a child with hemolysis, the iron absorption is much, much higher. It is because of these three mechanisms: anemia, hypoxia, and hemolysis. So all of them reduce the hepcidin levels. And so you will not see a iron deficiency in a THAL major. Having said that, there is a possibility that in a THAL trait, there might be iron deficiency anemia. So that happens. That happens. So I would ask Dr. Vinod to further elaborate if there is any other point.
Same, sir. Like as you said, like iron absorption is 10 times more in the case of TAL major child as compared to the normal child. So even in a case like this where the child never received iron, just breast milk, we are going to give tons and tons of iron with say blood transfusion. So there is no
I'm talking
requirement.
about the stage before the transfusion starts in
Yeah.
these children. Many of them they start developing, needing transfusion after 6 months to 8 months.
So
And
if it is like a non-transfusion dependent case, still there is a need to evaluate. Maybe practically not seen in such a theoretical situation. So, but at least transfusion dependent TAL major. So definitely they'll come to us only at a stage where there is a requirement for immediate transfusion. The hemoglobin is less than 6 or so. So we just put in 20 ml per kg blood. So that will be equal to multiple iron syrups.
of course, that is very obvious.
Yes,
After
sir. Yes.
transfusions, this stage doesn't come at all. But
Yeah.
basically, in children, we try to give iron very early. And
Okay.
after the physiological stage of anemia.
Yes.
And so iron deficiency is so common. So I was
Yes.
wondering.
That's justified, sir. We can give before diagnosing a TAL major, giving iron for all children is justified given the quantum of iron deficiency in the country. And as sir importantly pointed out, TAL minor, especially I get calls from gynecologist. The mother is TAL minor. Should I give iron for that mother? We have to give because TAL minor mother is equally prone to have iron deficiency during pregnancy. So she has to receive iron during pregnancy. TAL major or TAL intermediate, okay, then it's not required. Based on ferritin, we should decide, but TAL minor, we should give iron during pregnancy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because of the rapid cell turnover, they would require folic acid. So they should always be on full white. That is their cell. And I think if there are no other questions. Sir, Dr. Rajendran, sir.
Yeah, sir. Dr. PRC, sir. Yeah. Dr. PRC, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. So I congratulate to the candidate. She did very well and she was able to answer the many questions. And also the mentor, Dr. Lakshmi, and the moderators, Dr. Ravichandran, they all did very well. I mean, the questions are very practical. Okay, they are not based on any much of theoretical. What do you do day to day in your OP and also as an inpatient in your ward? That is what is asked. I'd just like to just mention a few things. One is when children like this, some other disease, they present with SAM-like presentation, acute or chronic malnutrition, or SAM-like presentation. Sometimes you may get cerebral palsy child. Sometimes you may get a cardiac disease child with a SAM, like all the criteria may fall into SAM. Okay, like this child, you may get all the criteria. So you need not go into the same aggressive mode of treatment as you do in a child who gets comes into a standalone SAM. These children are just like managed as a community management of SAM. So same way, because these children are eating well, they are otherwise normal. Underlying disease treatment itself, most of them will become much better. Just see to that they are getting the adequate calories, proteins, and see to that they don't get into any sudden refeeding syndrome, and gradually build it up as Dr. Lakshmi has mentioned. Okay. So you need not be much confused about following the same principles of what you do in a child who gets admitted only for SAM. But the basic principles are same. You feed them, you take care of all the things like normal temperature maintenance, especially in a hospital. Those things you have to take care of. Because this is a problem which many times students face. When they see with the criteria, it falls into SAM, and how they should go about and telling about the management. Okay, so that may be, you can keep it in mind. And the other thing is, such children, you have to have some importance to the social background and what is the type of awareness of theirs and how they will get the treatment from now onwards. So because this is a chronic disease, which is going to be lasting for a long time, and they are all come from another state, what kind of facilities, the medical care they will get, all this you have to probably little bit you have to give the information. You have to talk like a general pediatrician taking care of a child with a chronic problem. That you have to keep in mind whenever you are, so the social problems, the educational problem, what are their cultural backgrounds, what are their state to state they have come, what are all the hardships they are going to face. And a simple thing like whether the mother has been already undergone family planning or sterilization could be mentioned. Okay, you can avoid many things like counseling and other things if she has already undergone sterilization. Okay, so these are all the practical things you can keep in mind and think of it what you do every day, day to day in your ward rounds and your management. Otherwise, the presentation was very good. The discussion was excellent.
I want to make one comment about what I already posted. See, a child who is already doing a lot of work, only that fatigue will be there. Okay, so fatigue is not a word to be used in such a young age when the child is having undernourishment, etc. See, fatigue is something when a child is active or running about and they feel tired. So you must say the child has not been active like the other children. Exactly what the mother has said, you must mention. Otherwise, in the first beginning itself, there will be a lot of discussions on that when you are using terminologies which are not appropriate for age. Okay, what is fatigue? Fatigue is tiredness when you do work. Okay, so where this child is doing work. So kindly be exactly what the mother says you tell, not your own words.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Elilasi, madam.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah,
So I joined a little late, around 8 o'clock, so I missed the first thing, but it was very good. I think what is more important is that now we are entering of course, we came to the daycare for hemoglobinopathies for blood transfusion. Now we are entering into the preventive, where we are screening. But so I think now the prevention and the, of course, your bone marrow transplant, stem cells transplant, all that should have, like when we were talking about only neo cells transfusions and all that, now I think we are stepping into the next era. So I think that was very welcome that you both, Ravi and Vinod Shekharan, were good at discussing, and they brought the real best out of Shaini. She was really able to withstand their questioning and she answered very well. Really, that was very nice. I think we should thank the mentors also and the other two also. So it was really good. I think luckily we will be seeing less of TALs. If our NHM's hemoglobinopathy program goes on well, screening the girls and not getting them married to the another carrier, all this will go in a long way to prevent us from seeing such, many children being affected with TAL major and all that. So thank you for the nice discussion and all that. Nice seeing you all, Sir PRC sir and Radhidran sir, after really a month, because I could not join in between for 2 sessions. Thank you, sir.
So we take this opportunity to congratulate officially Professor Elinarcy, who has become, though she was de facto, she was a director, now she has become officially taken up as a director and superintendent of Institute of Childhood. Congratulations, Dr. Elinarcy.
Madam. That's an, yeah.
Ravi, I have one query, doubt.
Yes, sir.
What will happen to these who are these migrant laborers and others? Do they come under a CM scheme? What kind of facilities they get? Or they are treated like the same?
Sir, we are not included them so far because if they have a PMJ card, they can be taken into the insurance, sir. Now we are actually going to the next step. TNHSP is now in talking to Assam, West Bengal, Andhra, Telangana and all because they are not covered under PMJ, so that to empanel them, so that all the migratory, everybody who do not come under PMJ also will be included. The steps have been initiated, sir.
Yeah.
Ravi, you have anything to say?
Yeah, just to add on, in ICH, we don't discriminate, sir. We just treat them free of cost. We try
You're
to
supposed to say that we don't charge for those who we should charge. You're not
that is
supposed
what.
to reveal it.
We don't charge whether they are from outside, which is, I mean, they are not in a condition where they can pay for the charges. Though the government has now recently passed an order saying that people from outside the state will have to have this kind of a fixed thing. We try to bypass it.
Yeah,
And,
but we are in the next step of including them in their care, and I think soon we will do it.
Yes, sir, that is it. But what I would like to say is that the insurance scheme helps them in getting the treatment even in private sector, which is much more important, because not every hospital in the government sector probably has a blood bank and the facility. Medical colleges, you can leave that. But otherwise, you have blood storage units, and it might be difficult for the child to be when it is brought suddenly to the district hospital, and transfusion may be an issue. So if they have an insurance, they can always go to a private sector where it would be done. So insurance does help that way. Probably the country is slowly moving towards a Western system of having insurance for everybody. For the good or bad of it, I think always a coin always has two sides. Yes, there are a lot of bad in the insurance also. But I think the way forward is that we need to cover everybody. Yes, sir.
But then doing a bone marrow transplant privately for these people,
not
that's
possible.
Also going to really save that. But because if our insurance gives, I thought it was 12, and Ravi, you said it's almost 17 lakhs is being given by the government insurance 15. For bone marrow transplant.
15,
okay, that's
15.
very good.
15
so
lakhs.
That's 15 now. Yeah. So I think those things are definitely a step forward. And of course, soon ICH will be starting the DMT. We are just setting up, so that also will be there.
Thank you, madam. And I think on behalf of IAP TNC, I appreciate and congratulate Dr. Elinarcy, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Appointed as a director. I think so happy. I think you are actively participating in teaching program of IAP TNC. I thank you. So I thank our today's the chairperson, Dr. Ravichandran sir, who has done very well. And as usual, he is an excellent teacher, and we have 3 times previously as to class for students also. So always, whenever we are asking, you readily accept our request also. Thank Dr. Ravichandran sir, and thank Dr. Vinod Kunasegaran, and he's saying hematologist, physician from Kaveri Hospital. I thank Dr. Vinod also, and thank Dr. Nagalakshmi from Kanyakumari Medical College. Has done excellent. The students are done really very well. And really, actually, that Kanyakumari and Tirunelveli, we thought of long due for them, and finally we can make them to present this forum. I'm really happy that from southern part of India, they have presented cases in IAP TNC that Zoom meeting. Thank all the postgraduates, and thank Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. PRC sir, who is actively participating in our IABT TNC teaching program, and as usual, Dr. Srinivasan sir usually interact very well with our moderator as well as students also. On behalf of IABT TNC, thank one and all for this wonderful opportunity and as well as benefit for the students. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.